So what I wanted to meet up with you today, Lake, was to do what we call an after-action review on the VA loan that we just closed. The scenario that we dealt with was the veteran was purchasing a home, had a sense of urgency for various reasons that he needed to move out, and he needed somebody who was an expert in an area that he wasn't necessarily familiar with. So we thought of you, and it was a good fit. From what I'm hearing, he's been giving me rave reviews about you. But tell me a little bit about your experience and what you think and how it went overall.
I think it was a great experience in the fact that there's a lot of things that people don't understand about VA loan. There's a lot of myths about VA loans. So with the VA loan, you can still close in 30 days.
A lot of misconception comes from VA loans not being able to close because of an old process of where they used to have to be sent out somewhere to be underwritten and approved. That's not the case anymore. We do everything in-house now. Is sometimes the VA has an issue with the certificate of the veteran. And so that's a part of the process that I want to start owning a little bit more through the veterans and requesting that they pick up the certificate of eligibility before the escrow process starts. The other part of the process I think that was pretty solid was his costs. That's another myth that we're talking about, that somewhere along the lines, sellers or even agents believe that sellers have to pay a certain amount of fees. And that's not necessarily the case. What it is the buyer is not allowed to pay for certain kinds of fees. They're called VA non-allowables. You can look them up online and see what they are. What happens in that case is traditionally the sellers would pay for that, but that's not the case anymore. We as lenders can issue a lender's credit to cover those costs, or we find a different way through rebating them some of the fees from the rate to cover those things. So basically there is nothing on the seller. You put a lot of equity and the sweat equity in this one.
Well, you're right. And see, here's the thing: when you're competing in with a lot of a heavy buyer pool, we were competing with a lot of buyers. Anytime you're buying a property for $500,000, you're competing with a lot of buyers. So we know that with the VA, we have to be creative because of the myths that people believe. But one of the things is that you have to kind of, as an agent, and the buyer, you might have to put in a little bit of sweat equity. Because if the property is not in pristine condition, an appraiser can come back in and say, hey, we need these things fixed.
When VA appraiser looks at it, they look at it for the entire property itself. So yes, it does have to be held to a high standard. And if there is chip paint, that means there's exposed wood, which could lead to termites, which could lead to bigger problems. That's really the main reasons why they look at those things.
It doesn't take that long for the VA appraiser to come out, do the work that they need to do, and get that report back to us. They were very prompt in getting the report back to us.
Absolutely. So, and that brings us to the final piece of what was the last thing that went, one of the things that went wrong and that could be done right was the escrow side wasn't able to keep up with the pace that we needed, so there were some delays there. That's going to happen at times. Escrows does get delayed at times. The only thing that we can do is ask the buyers and the borrowers to be aware that there are certain delays that are going to happen that are outside of our control. Just be flexible with it.
The escrow company was not used to the pace that we were used to in order to get it closed. So it was making escrow feel a little nervous and jittery. In the end, we still managed to close, and it's always going to be something that holds up an escrow. We don't know what it's going to be. The whole thing is for a buyer to know that we're going to be able to work through it.
Yeah. Hopefully on the VA, I just kind of wrap it up. I wanted to bring up a few points that I think are key. And how does a VA stack against a conventional or traditional type of lending? It's my personal favorite. It requires no down payment. The turn times are not different than anything else. The fees and the costs the veterans are protected. The property always has to be in good shape. And the overall process and the rates are typically better. But the biggest part is no mortgage insurance, and veterans that have served, I believe, should have the right for home ownership. And
yes,
that's our job to put them in that home.
And they didn't have to pay for the appraisal either.
This is true. So that's it. That wraps it up. That's what I wanted to chop up with you today. And if anybody has any questions regarding anything on VA, traditional, non-traditional, any kind of loans that you might have, give us a call, and we'll be happy to work with you. Thank you very much.
All righty, we got to close. Yes.